This statistic changed my life and is literally the reason why I'm living in Latin America. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my channel. I'm really happy you guys are here watching this video, especially if you are Latino. Latinos, woo woo! I know that not all Latinos speak Spanish, so I'm making an English version. And even though this message is really for everybody in the Americas, it really is most especially relevant to you guys, a todos ustedes. I want to explain to you guys my why, my story, my motivation, why I make videos, why I do everything online as La Gringa Latina, and why this has meaning not just for me, but for the whole world. I didn't start a YouTube because I love to edit long hours of videos. I don't seek out new followers for some ego rush, and I don't post any photos or videos just for the likes or attention. I have a purpose behind all of this that's so much bigger than just you or me. So, let me tell you guys. As some of you may know, I'm from a city in the US, Omaha, Nebraska, to be more specific, Nebraska, that has very little Latin influence. I grew up in a really white society in the comfortable upper middle class suburbs of the US. It was through my language studies of Spanish that I became little by little more aware of the small but very real Latino population that was in Omaha, Nebraska. And then when I went off to college in the New York City metropolitan area, I became hugely aware of this huge Latino presence in the entire nation. Ever since I began studying Spanish in elementary school, I began to look for opportunities to practice it, to get out and speak with real natives, and eventually travel to Latin America to practice this language I was so good at. I was really good at it at the beginning. And since Latinos are just such a warm and welcoming people, I quickly became very interested in the culture from a young age. So when I got to college, it was a pretty easy decision for me to choose my major of diplomacy and international relations. I'm really interested in how the politics of one country, that being my country, arguably the most powerful country in the world, affects all other countries in the world in very real ways. It still fascinates me how interconnected we are in today's world because of globalization, because of this thing called the internet, and how governments are really at the mercy of that inevitable globalization, and therefore there is this need to create sound policy. So while the other students within my I was gonna say carrera, but that's not the word. You bilingual people will understand me. Within my major, excuse me. The other students in my major focused on regions like China or the Middle East or Russia, more conflict zones within the diplomatic arena. I always focused on Latin America. Hello? Hello?
Shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer.
And I don't know why more people didn't, because it's literally in our backyard. It's the most relevant. Well, this leads me to the statistic that blew my mind and literally changed how I saw everything. So when I was at my university, I was lucky enough to be a part of the Distinguished Honors Program. And in our last year, we had to write a thesis that was a year-long project. It was a thesis that was the equivalent of a master's, so it was like a disgusting 60-page thing that I ended up with at the end. And while I won't go into the topic of what my really long thesis was about, it had something to do with the situation at the border and the US government's role in that. And in my thesis research, I kept coming across and relying heavily on one particular source, and this is a documentary called Harvest of Empire. It's an award-winning documentary. It is amazing, and at the time it was free on YouTube, and now it's not. I so wish you guys could watch it, but go buy the documentary. It is amazing. It talks about the different migrations of Latin people to the US over a span of many decades. So the Salvadorans, the Mexicans, the Dominicans, the Puerto Ricans, all of them having their own story. And in it, Juan Gonzalez, who is the author of the book that then became the documentary, he explains very clearly how the enormous Latino presence in my country is a direct result of the US government's actions in Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. The reality is that the United States is changing. The actual makeup of the United States is changing. My country has been and always will be an immigrant nation. And the reality is that right now, the Latino population makes up the largest and fastest growing minority of all. The statistic is this: 500,000 Latinos will turn 18 every year for the next 20 years. This means that by 2050, in only 30 years, Latinos will make up 1/3 of the entire US population. And at this rate of growth, by the end of the century, a majority of the people in the US will draw their roots not to Europe, but to Latin America. That's huge. Like, just imagine people like me of completely white Anglo-Saxon ethnicity being the minority. Like, that's crazy. But seriously, this year is a presidential election year, and it will be the Latino vote that determines the final result. I mean, the Latino presence is becoming more and more important simply because there are more Latinos in the US with every passing year. See how important this is? I mean, they don't call the Latino presence the sleeping giant for nothing. So at this rate of change, there's going to be enormous and significant changes across nearly all areas of my country: educational, cultural, social, political, and probably more. There will also be growth in Latin America as more Americans and Canadians visit the region, as tourism slowly grows in Latin America. I mean, we've already been seeing that here in Medellin, Colombia over the last 10 years for sure. So when you look at it over the long term, you see that these regions are just going to be mixing more and more and more. So this is all to say, as these two cultures merge over a span of many decades, the world is going to be needing people who understand fully the language, the people, and the culture. The world's going to be needing these types of people who create and foster these intercultural connections and understandings and peace. So that's why I know that what I'm doing by living here in Colombia and Latin America and sharing what I do on my social media with travel and culture, all of this has meaning because I understand this reality that's constantly in the back of my mind. I want to create a world where there's no racial discrimination, where people from different groups can live peacefully together, and where we are proud to share our cultures because we value culture and we respect our roots and where we come from. I want you Latinos to keep your cultures alive, especially in the States. I want you to teach the gringos, share your culture. And not because you're better or your culture is inherently better in any way, but as a gringa, self-professed Latina, I can speak from my own personal experience and say that life is so much more colorful when you know another culture. Very literally, sometimes too. It enriches you in ways that you would have never even expected, getting to understand the perspectives of another people and getting to witness and share in a culture that is not yours. It opens your mind in huge ways and makes you a better individual and world citizen. I can only thank and have a huge amount of gratitude in my heart for each and every person that was a part of my life journey of getting to this point of speaking fluent Spanish and really understanding fully the culture. I am a better person for knowing the Latino culture and all of the lessons that their people have taught me. I just wish that more people would come to Latin America, learn Spanish, a little bit of Spanish, just a little bit, and like understand the culture. It's awesome. But I mean, if you don't want to come to Latin America, like the Latinos will come to you. 2100, baby. Latinos are coming for you. They're gonna be everywhere. It's gonna be a taco takeover, okay? So, it is really important that you share your cultures. The world gains and does a little happy dance when you share it. And I am just complete proof of that. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching this entire video. You don't know what this means to me. This is really my why, my inspiration, why I do everything as La Gringa Latina. I know, I'm not your typical white girl, and I totally accept that. Make sure you're subscribed, and do me a favor, if you have a friend that's like super Latina, super Latino, and like always speaking Spanish, sin pena, send this video to them, and if not, just send it to all your friends because I want this message to go out to as many people as posible. Yo soy La Gringa Latina y nos vemos en el próximo. Chao, besos. Sí, el futuro sí es latino, pero también es femenino. Así que, watch out. Watch out. Latinas, bye.